Today I am going to be talking about the Army structure. I'm trying to explain for probably the third, maybe fourth, maybe even the sixth time to my mother what the Army structure really is. Now, I've created this handy dandy little presentation over here, as we can say, because it just helps to see better what this is. So let's get started on what the structure really is. So first of all, there's a battalion. Battalion is one of the largest forms of structure. In a battalion that averages 500 to 800 men. Now, the leader of the battalion is called the commander, and a commander's rank is usually a lieutenant colonel. Now, the executive officer, whose job is to help the commander make decisions about the battalion, is a major. Then, the sergeant major, who's the man that relays all the information right down to actually the enlisted people, is a command sergeant major. This is your battalion leadership. Like I said, battalion is the largest. A battalion then breaks down into companies. Now here we have 2 companies, but usually there can actually be more. Now a company has usually 100 to 200 men in it. The company officer, or the commander of the company, is ranked as a captain. Now, the executive officer as well is a first lieutenant. Then the first sergeant, who is even more direct than the command sergeant was with the men, comes down here and he will address the enlisted men as well. The big difference between first sergeant and command sergeant is he gives the overall basic structure and basic idea to the enlisted of what they want done, and then this first sergeant goes into more detail of priorities. So there's your company. Now, company broke out of battalion, but what comes from a company now is platoons. Now, platoon is way smaller than a company or a battalion, and they only average usually 40 men in this platoon. The platoon leader is going to be a second lieutenant, and the platoon sergeant is a sergeant first class. Now, once you go from platoon, it is made up of squads. There's usually 3 to 4 squads in a platoon, and each averages 10 to 12 enlisted soldiers in it. Now, each squad in the platoon, though, has a squad leader. The squad leader is usually a sergeant. What the sergeant does is he relays the information, the most important one, of when and where the enlisted men will need to be, how they need to look, the very most detailed parts of it, the sergeant relays right to the enlisted men. Then the sergeant gets the information, he passes it up to the platoon sergeant, who relays it to the second lieutenant, whose job is to take that information and look at what the morale would be and how his men are doing. Then he relays how the men is doing up to the captain of his company. The captain and the XO then takes all that information and they basically look at how their whole company is doing, and then they give that information up to the lieutenant colonel, who then overall takes the information and looks at how his battalion as a whole unit is functioning. Now, this is a lot of stuff that the lieutenant colonel needs, but the paperwork and even more information is handled by another group called the staff. Now, staff is broken down into shops. You have your S1 staff, who deal with personnel and administration issues. The S2 deals with intelligences. S3 does operations and training. S4 is logistics. S5 is civil military operations. S8 is budget. Now, all these staff positions report to a captain, all except for the S3 shop, who will report to a major. So, let's go into more detail. The personal administration officers, they deal with getting the information straight about what a person is, their age, their height, their weight, all the personal information. Intelligence deals with the intelligence that they know about operations or other deals. Now, operations and training, obviously, they are the people they go into detail about how the training or operation is going to be carried out. They plan the operation and training. Logistics, how logical and how much logistics do they have. Then civil military operations deals with basically the communication and what will the battalion and military be doing to deal with civilian operations. And then S8 is budget. Budget deals with how much money and how much funding will the battalion have. Is there any questions about the battalion structure and the Army structure as a whole?
So why do we even have it?
The reason why the Army is really set up like this is it's a good way to channel all the information from the bottom, the very one soldier, and get it all the way up to the officers and the top commanders in a quick, orderly manner. And another reason, besides the speed of which information can be passed down, is that it allows it to be broken down by size. So say you have a small mission, and it's not going to take a full 800 to 600 men in a battalion. You can break that all the way down to a platoon size, and instead of sending out the full battalion, they can decide to send out a platoon of only 40 men.
Okay, where are these battalions located anyway?
A lot of the times you can find battalions on bases, or sometimes they are deployed overseas onto a foreign military base.
Okay.
Their maximum size for a battalion?
Usually a battalion will run anywhere from about 600 to 800 men, and the reason being is once it gets past that stage, it runs into the issue of running into a size of a brigade, which is usually 3 battalions, but technically most battalions just do not exceed over 800 men.
Do these captains over here in the leadership role fill the staff roles as captains?
The captains and leadership and the captains and staff can actually switch positions based on what they are told to do, but usually how it comes down is these captains chose to be in personnel and administration officer. They want to be the officer to work with this group, but technically they are the same rank, even though a lot of times they do not switch.
So how does in your leadership squares, how does each square relate to each other? So who would the captain, let's say in the company square, report to in the battalion leadership square?
Usually the captains will report on up to the lieutenant or the major, and this goes up the same way. So your sergeant first class all the way down here will report to your second lieutenant, who will report up to the captain, who would then report up to the lieutenant colonel. Here, your first sergeants and the first lieutenant report to your captain as well. So basically, the enlisted goes up to your officer goes to officer, and then these enlisted go up to the officer, and then he goes on up to the head officer.
So in each one of those platoons, there's more than, how many squads are normally with a platoon?
Normally a platoon will have anywhere from 3 to 4 squads inside of it. It's just another way to break down the platoon into smaller groups.
Did you say again why normally the S3 is a major, while the other ones tend to be captains?
That's a good question. Usually the S3 is a major because operation and training is a very large staff section. And a lot of times when you have a larger section, they want someone with a little more experience to be in command. And a major actually is a higher rank than a captain.
Do you think Mom's got it now?
I am for certain that she has either got it or I've just confused the heck out of her and there is no hope.